The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Good morning and welcome to Fantasy NBA Today, brought to you by Hoop Ball. My name is Adrian Benjamins and I'm here with Neil Rochlani. Neil, how are you?
I'm doing great, Adrian. Great to be back on with you. How are you?
Good, man. I'm always looking forward to our Friday's show. Another week down, another week closer to the start of the season. And Neil, we got some big news today. Yahoo opened up their fantasy basketball site. Yahoo mock drafts are open for business. Are you ready to do some mock drafts?
I'm ready to join you. I am sure you've already done a dozen by now. Is that correct?
I've done one, and I gotta say, we gotta take everything right now with a grain of salt because the rankings are skewed horribly. So, but right off the bat, I noticed something, and that is I'm going guard very, very early because from round 3 to about round 6, there's a glut of centers and big men. Let me list them off for you. I think I got Miles Turner in round 4. I got John Collins in round 5. I got Jared Allen in round 6. I think Joel Embiid I ended up getting in round 3. So I might start every single mock draft with 2 guards. Like I'll go for, just 2 guard guys. And because I know in that range right there are so many bigs available. So I'm already kind of got that in my mind doing these mock drafts. What do you think, Neil?
Hey, I'm glad to hear that because I'm trying to. Well, first of all, I'm shocked Joel Embiid went in the 3rd round. That seems ridiculous. Were you like in a 4-team league? I don't understand how he.
So I am plan on doing all my mock drafts a 12-team league. This was a 12-teamer, and I can't remember. Okay, I know I was picking late. I got Donovan Mitchell. Maybe I went Joel Embiid 2nd, actually. Let me rephrase that. So I went Joel Embiid 2nd. I ended up getting Kyle Lowry after that because I knew I was going to target centers. So I just wanted to get one more then after that, I just went on a run of big men, as I mentioned. After that, it was, Collins, Jared Allen. I think I grabbed Tobias Harris in there. Really late, I went for Dejounte Murray. So to kind of go back to the guard spot, I got Dejounte Murray. I ended my draft with DJ Augustine, who I think is going to be a really solid point guard this year. Probably wouldn't even have been drafted in this mock draft if I didn't take him at the end. So, man, really interesting stuff. I can't wait to get in this. Neil, let's do a bunch of mock drafts. You know what I want to do is I think this weekend, let's kind of put it out there on Twitter for the Hoop Ball listeners. Hey, jump into a mock draft with us. Let's keep, during this off season, let's do a bunch of mock drafts with the Hoop Ball listeners. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it, man. I want to do a lot. I actually want to do a lot where I experiment with, like you just said, you went 2 point guards and then you did your bigs. I know your strategy is to get both those positions early. I want to just play around with it and do what if I go 2 wings early? What happens then? Or what if I go 2 big men early? What happens then? And then it just allows me to see kind of how things play out a little bit. I don't know what my real strategy is going to be in going to the my actual drafts, but I want to just try out different scenarios and then different, obviously different starting positions. So, I mean, different pick numbers. So this is going to be fascinating. Yeah, so I'm happy to do as many as you want, and I'm going to try out different things to see, how my team ends up when I do it that way. So
also just real quick, I targeted really late. This is why I didn't go wing early, Neil. Really late, I got Brandon Ingram super late. Mario Hezonja, sleeper, could start for the Knicks. Had a really great season last year when he got time with the Orlando Magic due to all their injuries. So I ended this draft, my very last pick, with Jetty Osman, a guy who I think is going to be pretty solid for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So this is why I didn't go wing. I didn't go wing early. There is a ton of value on the wing really late in these mock drafts. All right, Neil. So, Neil, I'm super excited to do some mock drafts with you now. You know, you and I, we were trying to get into ESPN mock drafts. I could not get a full mock draft in there. Every single time I was trying to get into a mock draft, they were empty. There would only be 1 or 2 people in there. So already my very first time getting into the Yahoo mocks, there were 3 full mock drafts. So it's already starting to bump over there, man.
I know how excited you are. I can just tell. I can tell, like, the glimmer in your eye. You're like wanting to get in there and just draft away. So I can't wait to get there with you.
All right. So, Neil, what do you want to go through?
Yeah,
today?
well, we've got a couple divisions left. And so we've got we've done the whole Eastern Conference. We did the Southwest last week in the Western Conference. So we're left with the Northwest and the Pacific, and we're going to go Northwest today. Do you want to go in order of last year's standings? That's kind of how we've been going, I believe.
Yeah. Why? You know what? I don't have the standings in front of me. Why don't you? Who's up first?
Who do you think won it? Can you remember? It was actually they were all separated by 3 games. All 5 teams.
Jeez Louise. Okay, I'm gonna say the Utah Jazz. No. Jeez. No way. Okay.
They're only 1 game back.
Okay, I'm gonna say the Blazers.
Yes, Portland 49-33.
Okay.
Yes, they won the Northwest, and looking into their offseason, I think their biggest move. They didn't do a lot, did they? I mean, their biggest move is sort of like Seth Curry coming in and getting rid of Napier. I don't see a lot of changes in this team. So in terms of winners or losers, I'm gonna have to say losers only because they did not. I don't know how they're going to compete in the West with this roster. I mean, they struggled last year in the playoffs against New Orleans, and they got swept. There were some rumblings about maybe this team going to get, make some wholesale changes, which obviously didn't happen. So, not saying they should have done that, but I just don't see how they're better than last year. What do you think about this team?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you just said that. I mean, the feeling I get from you is you would consider them losers because as you said, they really didn't make a lot of changes. Their core is pretty much exactly the same, right? Lillard, McCollum, we got Mo Harkless, Al-Farouq Aminu. We still got Yusuf Nurkic in the front court. But one of the things I do like, they drafted some young talent. Zach Collins, a really interesting big man. I'm really curious to see if he can get in this rotation. And then they got some real young guys in Anthony Simmons and Gary Trent Jr., guys that aren't going to really make a big splash right away, but down the line, these guys could be really good. And then I do like the addition of Seth Curry. We know when Seth Curry's healthy, he can contribute out on the wing. So he could be a nice addition to that backcourt. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like I feel like they needed to make a big splash or just change something up, and it doesn't feel like that happened. So, with all the other changes with the teams in this Western Conference, it feels like a lot of teams got better, and maybe they, are either the same or so. Yeah, you just get that feeling that they didn't really win this offseason free agency period. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'm just looking now from a fantasy perspective of what players are kind of intriguing to me. Lillard's obviously at the top. It finished 9th last year in 8 cat averages. McCollum 50th, which I'm not sure where he was drafted, but that seems curious to me if he's going to stay there. I'm looking at his numbers right now. I don't see, and he had 36 minutes a game last year, so I don't see where he's going to change too much there, and 18 and a half shots. The one guy who, speaking of when you're in the opening, you talked about getting bigs late. Nurkic finished 80th last year. I think if he's sitting there at 80th again this year, I may take a chance on him. I don't think his minutes are going to go up. We're going to play 26 minutes a game, but he has the ability to get a fair amount of rebounds and blocks, and if he can start shooting just a little better from the free throw line, his fantasy value could go up a couple rounds. So he's the one guy I'm sort of like circling on this team as we go into next season in terms of value for drafting. What are your thoughts on perhaps a guy or two you'd like to target?
So, as you said, of course, Lillard's the guy you want. Top 10 guy. I think he'll be a top 10 guy again. We can expect, the same kind of production that we've seen for him. CJ McCollum as well. Both these guys in their prime 6. Damian Lillard's 28 years old. Just in the middle of their prime. These guys are pros. These guys do it each and every night. So these are like the safe top guys you want. Neil, I'm not falling for these wing guys anymore. Mo Harkless, Evan Turner, Al-Farouq Aminu. These aren't top options. Won't be targeting any of these guys. And then, as you said, Yusuf Nurkic's kind of an intriguing guy. I really had high hopes for him last season and kind of let me down. Just really inconsistent with his production. But Neil, one of the things that surprised me, I'm in the middle of this Hoop Ball Dynasty League 2 draft, so I'm really tuned into players' age. And with how old would you think Yusuf Nurkic is?
I think he's 24.
Good guess. He's 23 years old.
Okay.
And, so this guy's still pretty young, Neil. So, I'm really hoping we see improvement from him this season. I hope he takes a couple steps forward because I think he does have a really fantasy-friendly game. And so I really hope we see him make that leap this year because he's still a young guy. All right. Neil, any closing thoughts on this team?
Yeah, real quickly. That's the one reason why I'm kind of bullish on him is because he is so young, and I think players start to get into their rhythm in the third, fourth, fifth year. And, one of his downsides was maybe his attitude, and maybe that's changing. So hopefully that changes, that'll translate to more effort on the court and better numbers. So let's go on to the second team. I'm going to keep quizzing you. Who do you think came in second last year?
Okay.
Oh, you got it. Oklahoma City. Okay.
Oklahoma City?
There you go. Okay. Yes, you got it. 48, the 48 and 34. Although they tied with the same amount of wins as your, I think your new favorite team, the Utah Jazz, and they did not do a whole lot either in the offseason. I'm looking at their roster right now. I guess the biggest news or to come out of there was the Carmelo Anthony leaving the team and now going to Houston. But Schroeder came up from Atlanta. Excuse me. That's kind of like Dennis Schroeder. So. Do you think he has much fantasy value sitting there behind Westbrook this year? Or you think you even draft him towards the end?
No. And, I was disappointed in Schroeder last year because I really, again, I had high hopes for this guy, man. I really thought he would be a solid fantasy player, and the inefficiency, the inconsistency. So, I wasn't high on him before this move. Now he's going to be playing either behind or next to Russell Westbrook, ultra ball dominant point guard, the guy I've referred to many times as a black hole of usage. Now he's going to be playing next to a guy like that. This is not going to help him. But, Neil, from a reality standpoint, I do really like what OKC has done this offseason, and I feel like they really, under the radar, they've improved because not only did they add Dennis Schroeder, Neil, they added Nerlens Noel, they kept Jeremy Grant, and they got rid of Carmelo Anthony, who did not work. I think their team last season, I felt like their team played much better anytime Carmelo Anthony was off the floor. So now he's gone. Neil, this is going to sound really surprising. I think Oklahoma City might actually finish towards the top of the conference. I'm not saying they're going to be better than the Warriors. No way. I'm not saying they're going to finish ahead of the Rockets, but they're going to be right behind there. I think really sneaky team here, Neil.
Yeah, no, I'm actually with you on that. I think they've got some really good superstars and some really solid role players that can help out defensively. And they're going to fit together better this year. I'm with you on that.
Neil, you hit the nail right on the head right there. They got two superstars, Russell Westbrook, Paul George. Then they've got a great cast of role players. Roberson's a guy, lockdown defender, great role player. Jeremy Grant, role player, great guy. Steven Adams is kind of a star on this team, right? He's like, so now you're adding two more role players in Nerlens Noel and Dennis Schroeder. This is a really interesting team, Neil. If they can all get on the same page and they can gel, watch out.
Yeah, I agree. There's potential there for them to be very good. And they always play the Warriors tough too. I don't know if you saw the schedule, but they play the Warriors opening night.
Oh man, and you know what? I love the you know what? I wanted to say hate right now, but that's kind of a strong word. But I love the intensity between Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. It's like, man, watching them go at each other last year, jaw at each other, was so much fun, Neil.
I know. I love Russ. I mean, in a league where people always get where these superstars always get these reputations for taking time off, not playing hard every game and every possession. You can't say that about Russ. He does that every game, every possession.
You know what?
He's so intense. I love that.
The word I was looking for was the chippiness. They are so chippy. I love it, man. It just makes the game fun. You don't see that a lot anymore, you know? Back in the golden age of hoops, the Michael Jordan's Bulls, there was a lot of that. So much rivalry, a lot of that. So we don't see as much of that in the game anymore, but it exists between these two teams. So as you said, I can't wait for that matchup.
All right. Before we move on real quickly, let's talk about these two big men. So Schroeder, I agree with you. He finished 62nd last year. I don't think I'm going to touch him this year. But let's go to the top two guys. Russell Westbrook was 12th last year. George was 16th. Do you think those guys are going to hit those marks again, or they might go down? What do you think is going to happen in terms of their value this year?
They'll be pretty close to right there. I may see a little bump going down for Westbrook only because they added Schroeder. So I think, there's going to be times when the game's out of hand. They got a big lead. Games last season where Russell Westbrook would be in the game late, he might just sit on the bench, just put Dennis Schroeder in. Russell Westbrook, 28 years old. A lot of what he does is based on his athleticism. They need to save him. It's a long season, 82-game season. So I think we're going to see Westbrook maybe not have to exert himself so hard during the regular season. And because of that, we may see a small bump in his numbers go downwards, but I think he's going to finish right there, right in that range. And Paul George, I think Paul George is good to go. I think we may see even some improvement there now with Carmelo Anthony gone. More shots for Paul George. Another year into this offense, more familiar with playing next to Westbrook and these guys. I think Paul George actually could improve. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, this one's going to be tough. I agree with you on Westbrook. He may go down slightly. He averaged, triple-double again, 10.3 assists on averages. So that could go down with Schroeder being a distributor. Both those guys played 36 and a half minutes. So if they do sort of rest them a bit, their whole stat lines might dip a tiny bit. I think George is going to be like around 15 to 20, and I think Russ will be between 10 and 15. So yeah, probably very similar to where they were. Maybe a couple of ranks down, I would say, only because the minutes were so high last year. But maybe they'll do it again this year. We'll see. You ready to move on? Or any final thoughts?
Yeah, real quick. Last guy you want on this team, Steven Adams. Really solid last season. Impressed me. Wasn't even on my radar last season, and I really liked what I saw from him. And then other than those big three, Westbrook, Paul George, Steven Adams, not really excited for anybody else on this team. We talked about how Schroeder's really going to see a loss in his value. And then all the other guys don't do enough for me in standard leagues. All right, Neil, let's move on. I think the next team up is at the Utah Jazz.
It sure is. I almost want you to go first because I know of your big crush here on Donovan Mitchell. I mean,
I'll go first.
I don't know anyone who has a bigger crush on him than you, and I know a lot of people who love this guy.
Do you want to hear something funny, Neil?
What's
in that mock draft, in this first Yahoo mock draft I did right before this show, I think I had pick 6. And I went Donovan Mitchell at pick 6.
I know if I'm ever in a league with you, I'm just going to cross off Donovan Mitchell off my board because, 1, he's not going to be there when I want to take him, and 2, I would feel bad if I took him from you. You have to have him on every team. I think that's just.
I will probably own him in every single one of my redraft leagues. So actually, I'm kind of learning right now that one of the best places for me to draft at is at the end or towards the end of that first round, because that's a good spot to take Donovan. Like, you're still kind of reaching on Donovan Mitchell, but if I have a pick 1 through 5, I can't take Donovan Mitchell there, right? Like, obviously you got to take Anthony Davis, Giannis, Harden, you got to take those guys. So there's no way you could take Donovan Mitchell over those guys. But if I'm at the end of the first round, I can justify taking Donovan Mitchell there. But anyways, let's get into the Jazz. I'll start. I think they're winners. Played really good last year. Kept their core together. I love that because, Rudy Gobert, solid up front, really great big man. One of the best big men in the league. Derek Favors played well. Showed he can coexist next to Gobert in that front court. Bringing back Joe Ingles again. Great role player out on the wing. Perfect guy to hit threes and space the floor. Then you got that young stud, Donovan Mitchell, right there at the 2. Just perfect. And then still have Ricky Rubio, solid point guard in the back. I mean, what a great starting 5. Another year together. Another year that they're familiar with each other. I really love this team. They got a nice group of role players as well. Alec Burks, Jay Crowder. They drafted a nice guy, I think, in Grayson Allen, a guy who I think is a perfect fit for this team because he's really grit and grimy, and they kind of needed that. Like, they kind of needed a little toughness. So I really like that addition. And then they got some depth in that backcourt, Neil. Dante Exum, Alec Burks. So I really like this team. Didn't make any big changes, but I consider them a winner. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, the consistency in itself, I think, is good here because they are a young team that are still figuring out, how Donovan Mitchell transitions from this guy he was just drafted last year and was thought of maybe being a afterthought in his first season to becoming the superstar he is. So with him sort of, I'm assuming, leading the team going forward, I mean, sort of an underusage, and they're going to be really good. And so I like their consistency. I'm glad they didn't make any major changes. And just for Utah to be able to keep everyone together, I think is a good sign. I like their coaching staff. Let's look at the fantasy side. Rudy Gobert, I think, disappointed a bit. He finished 35th overall in averages and was injured throughout the year. Is he someone you try to take? I tend to avoid him because of his free throw percentage. I don't like taking guys early that have a big knock against them. What do you think of him this coming season?
Yeah, I probably won't own very much of Rudy Gobert, only because, as you mentioned, the injury concern. We've seen him miss time here and there for a leg injury. And also, Neil, I feel like now, we talked about it at the beginning of the show, there's a lot of great bigs to target. Joel Embiid, Jared Allen. I'm back on the Miles Turner train. So I likely won't own a lot of Rudy Gobert. As you said, Neil, the free throw hurts. The bog on the free throw percentage isn't great. So, he's still going to finish as a pretty strong fantasy option. So I'm not saying he's like a do not draft guy, but I likely won't have him on a lot of teams.
Yeah, I'm probably the same way. I mean, the other guy that's really intriguing for me is Ingles, who finished 61st last year and kind of was drafted towards the end of the drafts. And I know Brewski was big on him, and he turned out to be great. And Played all 82 games. I think he's going to hold pretty steady here. Hopefully he'll fall to like the 7th or 8th round, and I can get him there. But I think he's going to be a solid 60 to 70 type player. Anyone else here on this team who you like fantasy-wise?
Yes, there's a guy on this team that no one's talking about that I like a lot. Donovan Mitchell, Neil. Draft Donovan Mitchell. You were talking about Donovan Mitchell, about, seeing his progression and this and that. Let's not forget, Donovan Mitchell started last year on the bench. He wasn't even starting at the beginning of the season. I believe he was coming off behind Alec Burks, or I'm not even sure. This season, he's going to be shot out of a cannon to start the season. So I can't wait, Neil. I cannot wait. I got to order my orange Donovan Mitchell jersey, and I'm going to wear it the first day of the season, man. I'm so excited.
Oh, my gosh. This is taking me back to shows I had with Eric Ong last year, where he would just his love is Ben Simmons, and he was talking about how much he loved Ben Simmons. Anyway, not to get too derailed. That is bold, though, because he did finish 44th last year. But you really think he's going to finish first round value?
Well, yeah. So, as I said, he started the season on the bench, wasn't even starter. I think his slow start is the reason why he finished so low. I think this year he's going to finish. Now, here's the thing. I'm definitely reaching on him because, honestly, I don't think he's going to finish as a top 10 player, but I think he'll finish as a second round type player this season. So, and I just want him so bad, I'll reach for him at the end of the first round. That's how bad I want this guy. But yeah, I'm all about Donovan Mitchell, Neil. Ride or die, Donovan Mitchell.
No, I love it. I love how you take guys who you love. I'm much less emotional about this game, and I need to get more into that. Like just taking guys you really think are great and love and fun to watch. So I applaud you for that. Should we move on, or is there anyone else you want to talk about on this team?
Let's move on. I think we covered them pretty good. Next team up, Minnesota Timberwolves.
Minnesota Timberwolves. Yeah, this is another team that made the playoffs. 4 teams from this division. I was let me look at my notes. Do you want to start on this one as well?
Why don't I start on this one?
Okay.
Neil, I kind of feel like they're losers from this offseason. Let me explain myself on this. Some rumblings that there's some unhappiness here with, Jimmy Butler doesn't agree with some of his teammates. Karl Anthony Towns was maybe not happy. I don't know, Neil. I feel like this team's like a ticking time bomb here. Like no one's happy. They didn't really improve, right? They didn't add anybody. So I don't know. On paper, they have a really nice roster. Jeff Teague, solid point guard. Andrew Wiggins, a guy who we thought had so much potential, and now he's kind of leveled off. And we're wondering, Neil, is what we're seeing from Wiggins, is this his ceiling right here? Because if it is, it's very disappointing, man. It's like, he doesn't bring the defensive stats. He's not very efficient. No threes. It's like we need him to step up. Jimmy Butler, solid guy, going to be great for fantasy. In the power forward spot, Taj Gibson, not excited about this guy. Karl Anthony Towns, I love. I would draft Karl Anthony Towns with the top 3 pick. I would take Karl Anthony Towns. But overall, Neil, I would consider them kind of losers just because it just feels like their trajectory is kind of headed downwards. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, the vibe there seems very unstable. Like, you have this domineering coach in Thibodeau, and then you have these 2 alpha players in Butler and Towns, and kind of wrestling for control there, and they don't seem to be able to coexist and both be happy. So this seems like this could have disaster written all over it, as much talent as they do have. That's why I might shy away from Towns. He was 7th last year in ACAT, and I don't see how he would get worse. He's just a superstar getting better as a player, and I would think that would translate into some of these numbers going up even more. But I'm worried. I'm worried this team might just fall apart. So I don't know if I want to take him in the first round. Butler, take him like a top 5 or 6 pick. Butler, I think, will still be fine. There's something about that guy's perseverance and work ethic and just determination that I love. Finished 14th last year. I think he'll finish in a similar number this year. Actually, you mentioned Taj Gibson. He was sort of a sneaky pickup, wasn't drafted in most leagues, and ended up starting and producing at the 89th level. And I think he can continue that this year. I think Tibbs loves him, and he's going to get those minutes again. So Wiggins not even on my draft board right now. It's just so sad. He's such a – I really wish he I was really rooting for him. I felt like he got really the shaft in Cleveland. He went there. LeBron decided to go back and basically I think had a say in him not sticking around and bringing Love over. So I felt bad for him then, and it just seems like he's not – he's kind of stuck in this team that's a little dysfunctional, and he's sort of like the third tier person now. So it's a little frustrating to see. I like to see him break out. If he's there at the end of my drafts, maybe I'll take a flyer on him.
Closing thoughts on this team, though, Neil. They usually are a team that I love to target for fantasy, only because Coach Tibbs rides his starters so hard. These are guys usually that lead the league in minutes because he plays his starters so much, almost to a fault, because you start to wonder, like, hey, they're up by 20. Do they need to be in the game right now? Like, what's going on here? So usually they are guys that I love to target for fantasy. I'm a big Karl Anthony Towns fan. I know you said you're a little worried about him, but I think he's going to be solid. Still super young. I'm looking for him to see some improvement from his game. And then lastly, they drafted a couple guys that I'm excited about. Josh Okogie and a guy named Keita Bates-Diop. They won't make an impact this season, but these are guys to watch maybe 2 or 3 seasons from now, I think, especially if Jimmy Butler ends up leaving. And so interesting just to keep an eye on these guys for like deep dynasty leagues. All right, Neil, any closing thoughts?
No, I'm with you on that. I think Towns is a superior talent. So as long as he's happy and he's playing hard, you're right. He will put up great numbers again in that top 6-7 range. So.
All right, let's move on to the last team, and there's no way I can get this wrong. There's only one team left, the Denver Nuggets. Neil, would you consider them winners or losers?
Yeah, I'm going to go with winners because they got Isaiah Thomas here in the offseason. They lost Wilson Chandler. I don't think there was any other major moves. Am I missing something? You mentioned they lost Wilson Chandler. I think that's great because they got a glut of wing guys here on this team when Will Barton, Gary Harris, Trey Lyles, Paul Millsap, Juan Hernangomez. This team is so loaded, Neil. I, like you, consider them winners just because, they kept their solid core together, added a really great backcourt bench guy, Isaiah Thomas. So really looking forward to seeing the improvement of their elite talent as Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, 2 young guys I want to see keep improving. So this is a really fun team for fantasy. Paul Millsap, solid player as always. Will Barton contributes, puts up good fantasy value each and every year. Gary Harris, another fantasy stud. This team's loaded with fantasy prospects, Neil. What do you think? Yeah, they're one of the most fun teams to watch and also one of the best fantasy teams in my opinion. Like you said, Jokic is going to be he's projected to go top or first round, I guess, depending on which size league you're in. He was 11th last year, and I think he's right around projected to finish that this year. The one guy that I really would like to have on my team, but I'm worried he may get taken too early, is Paul Millsap. He finished 72nd last year in averages on 30 minutes a game. He only played 38 games, but on averages still was only 72nd. And I can see things going up for him there, but I'm not sure how high it's going to be because there are so many great players on this team that put up such great numbers, like Harris and Murray and Barton and all those wings that are going to come in as well. So, and then Isaiah Thomas off the bench. So hopefully Millsap will last to maybe the 4th or 5th round, and then I could take him, but I'm not sure. His recognition is so high. I'm a little nervous about him going earlier. But I think all these guys can hold their value. I mean, Gary Harris last year was 39th. Barton may take a dip because he's starting now. I think that's my initial take on him. Jamal Murray there at 57. Still, I think, a very good player. This will be a fun team to watch, and I like all these guys.
I really love your take on Paul Millsap, Neil. This is a guy I feel like for the last 5 years, I've been drafting this guy like in the 3rd round because he's just like not a sexy, exciting name, but for fantasy, he always delivers. But this year, Neil, this will be the year I likely won't own him. 33 years old, and we talked about how loaded this team is. He's had injuries too, so I think this might be the first year that I really start fading Paul Millsap. And then one other thing I'm a little disappointed about from a fantasy perspective, Jamal Murray, a guy who was on my ride or die list last season, a guy I had to have everywhere. This year, with the addition of Isaiah Thomas, I'm a little scared that there's going to be times where Isaiah Thomas has the hot hand and maybe Jamal Murray doesn't get back in the game. So I still think Jamal Murray will be a solid asset, but I'm just not going to target him as heavy as I did last year. Last year, I think he was on all my teams. This year, if he's there at the proper round, I'll probably take a shot on him, but I'm not like looking for him. And then Gary Harris, a guy I'm all in on, impresses me every season. And then, Will Barton, a guy proven guy, but a guy I might shy away from a little bit too, just because of just how loaded this team is. So anyways, and then not too much else other than those guys. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Barton maybe down a round or two, and then Gary Harris. Yeah, that's a good call on Jamal Murray. I was thinking Isaiah Thomas would lead the second unit, but I could see him staying in longer, like you said, and closing games sometimes. So who knows how that's going to play out, that dynamic. So maybe I will stay away from him.
Wait, one of the things real quick I want to mention about what you just said, Coach Malone and Isaiah Thomas have history together back when they were in Sacramento. So I think Malone is a big fan of Isaiah Thomas. And this is why, if Jamal Murray's struggling, if his shot's not there, we could just see Isaiah Thomas run with the team. So, we've seen before in the past Malone do some kind of like unconventional things with lineups. And so it's just a situation that just it's kind of in the back of my mind. So, if I'm deciding between Jamal Murray and another guy I like exactly the same, that factor right there might put the other guy in front of him for me.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. That's a risk that we have to consider. When you've got a quality backup as good as Isaiah Thomas, MVP candidate from 2 years ago, never know how much he's going to get usage. All right, that is it. I don't know how long we've talked, but I feel like it's been a while. And are you, besides mock drafts, what are you doing this weekend?
Okay, so both my kids have birthdays this week. I have 2 kids. My daughter just turned 2 yesterday. My son turned 6 on Saturday. We're taking him somewhere in the LA area. There's like a dinosaur exhibit going on. So he's a dinosaur freak. So we're going to take, like, the way I love fantasy basketball, that's the way he loves dinosaurs, if that's a decent comparison. So, so anyways, we're taking the boy to go see dinosaurs. Other than that, man, I'm going to be mock drafting. Neil, you're going to get some texts from me saying, Neil, let's jump into a mock draft, man. Let's do this. How about you, Neil? Where are you jet setting off to?
I'm jet setting. Well, speaking of jets, it's the Aaron Waters show here in Chicago, which means there are like fighter planes overhead just circling the city. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those things, but it's very loud. So I might check that out. Other than that, I will just be waiting for your texts. I'll be bugging you, and we can get on some together. That's about it. let's wrap this up. I'll let you close it out with the final comments.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. We hope you guys have a great week and a greater weekend. You guys hit us up on Twitter at Ball with Neil, at Adrian Benjamins. Neil and I, this weekend, when we're ready to jump in a mock draft, we're going to tweet it out. Hoopball listeners, join us in this mock draft. I'll put a link up or something so you guys can click into it, jump in this mock draft room with us. You guys, but we would love to answer some questions. We hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.